All right. Hello, today is August 21st, 2019. This is Ruth Bruner, and I'm here interviewing Dolores Hergert for the Windsor Severance Historical Society oral history. So, Dolores, tell us where the location is, where we are doing this interview, and what is significant about this part of town that you live in, or country?
Well, we're at the eastern border of School District 4.
Well,
and we're in Weld County, yes, and we are south of Severance. So really that's about it. We're halfway between Windsor and Greeley.
okay. So how long have you lived on this farm?
62 years.
62 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you. We'll talk about some other things, but I know that this coming in a week and a half, it's a Windsor Harvest Festival.
Yes.
And that's kind of important because you were one of the Harvest Festival queens.
1950. And then I had two daughters who were Harvest Festival queens.
Okay.
And I don't remember the years that they were.
When you were selected, how was that process decided?
Groups in Windsor sponsored girls. And it was the Windsor Lions Club that sponsored me. I was out of town. They asked my parents, and my parents said they could do it. And they're the ones who worked. They sold tickets, and the money then supported the Harvest Festival, the money that they raised. There was no such thing as a pageant in those days.
Okay.
It was just people donated money and got to vote.
Okay, so pretty much the person who was selected queen received the most votes or tickets purchased in their name.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what else do you remember about the Harvest Festival in 19?
Well, not a lot. I hadn't been involved because I grew up in Severance, but I do remember that I went without a date. And it was after that they made sure the Harvest Queen had a date.
So where was it that you went?
And we were at the American Legion is where some of the festivities took place. But not very many things took place.
Okay.
In those days. Yeah.
And what year do you remember did they start the Harvest Festival? The parade and
I do not know that. 49 was the first year that they had a queen that I was familiar with. So all of that's probably started in about 1949. It was abandoned during World War II.
Okay.
All of that kind of stuff was. And it was 49 they decided to start it again.
It was when Windsor had the first paved Main Street in Weld County, so that should be something to research, and we'll have to see with it this weekend. So you grew up in Severance then?
Yes, I did. I moved to Severance when I was about 5 years old.
Okay.
And went through 8 grades of school at Severance in this school building.
Let me hold that up. Wow. Oops, sorry to cover up your face. But
That's
where
okay.
was this Severance school at?
About 1 block south of the main intersection. You know where Bruce's Bar is. Road 33 and 74.
Okay.
And this teacherage is still there. It's a private home now.
Okay.
They built the teacherage so they could get teachers to stay. In those days they had to replace teachers so often. They thought, well, if we build a teacherage, the teachers will stay. And so all of the bedrooms were upstairs, and then they shared the living room and cooking facilities and so forth. And most of them went home on the weekend.
All right.
Stayed during the week.
So did you go to high school in Severance then too?
No. It was only 1 through 8. And then we had to choose. We chose Windsor a few of the people who lived in east or just east of Severance chose Eaton. And to this day now, they are the Eaton School District, and we're Windsor. Severance, most of Severance is Windsor.
Okay, so what was school like in Severance with 1 through 8th grade in one building, or was it?
Well, we had 2 grades in a room. Every teacher taught 2 grades. While one class was having class, the other one was doing their seat work. We had recesses. And then on Fridays, we would go to the auditorium and have music. So we had music one day a week. The whole school went up there.
Okay.
And that was where we had a stage, and we had a Christmas operetta. Everybody in the school was in the operetta. 8th graders got to have a play that was just their own. And then we had a box social where girls made boxes, boys bought them, and that financed a trip to Denver for the 8th graders.
For the 8th grade class.
Yeah.
Did you know which boys were, did the boys know which box they were buying?
Very often they did. And there was a parent organization, it wasn't called PTA, but there would be mom's night once a month. Women had to do the program and the refreshments. Another night, another month would be dad's night, and they would do a play and do the refreshments. And 8th grade then was the 8th grade play, Christmas was the operetta. So yeah, there was something going on all the time. It was a great school to grow up in. We did all the boys' sports. We played baseball with them, we played football. Basketball, we did it all. But when my mother-in-law, who was in the class of 1924 at Severance, they actually had a girls' basketball team with uniforms. We have a picture of her. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
My mother-in-law was Molly Felty at the time.
Molly Felty.
Yeah, and Molly Sharman was on that team. There were a lot of known Windsor girls on that team.
So who are some of the teachers that you remember at Severance?
Well, there was one in particular. Her name was Dorothy Erickson. She was my 4th grade teacher, and I loved her because she read to us every day after lunch, and she read Tom Sawyer. I fell in love with books through her because she read to us every day.
Oh, that's a good story.
Yeah.
So how do you think education has changed? Because I know that you worked at Tozer then.
I did.
And
at Windsor, we went to school from 9 to noon, and then from 1 till 4, we had a recess in the morning and one in the afternoon. I don't know, things were more structured, probably. I felt like we got a really good education. I think there were 8 of us went into Windsor, and 7 of us made it into the top 10 graduating class.
Wow. How many were in your graduating class?
Only 30.
Only 30. No, but still, in 1951, right?
50.
1950.
Yeah.
That's right, Tom Moyer.
Harold Felty, Melvin Sharman, a lot of these young men who really went on to do really remarkable things. Yeah, and several of the girls became teachers or they became nurses. We all did something constructive with our lives, yeah.
All right. So you went on and married and moved to this farm?
Yes. My husband, I put him through school. He graduated from Colorado A&M. He was in the Air Force for 2 years. We came back to the farm in 1957 and have been here ever since.
Ever since. So how has farming changed?
Well, that's changed a lot, you know. Tractors have gotten air conditioning and not much hand labor anymore. Of course, And even with beets, they spray them so that there are no weeds.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So farming has changed a lot, and it's cut down a lot on the expense of producing a crop. So, yeah. I can't say too much about the farming because I had 5 kids and I didn't help that much. The last time they put me in a truck, I could not get it in reverse. I was expecting my 5th child. I got out of the truck and slammed the door, and they never asked me again. I walked back to the house.
Yeah. So how was caring for 5 kids different than today? You know, I mean, 5 kids. Did you do gardening?
They made a lot of their own entertainment. They played together. They built forts in the corn. We had a great time out there, and they love it. Mm-hmm. They're so glad that they grew up on the farm. But they did make a lot of their own fun. Yeah. It's just the way it was.
What was the names of your children? I mean, some people who watch this may know your children.
Well, Carrie Hergert Hartman,
okay.
Lisa Dahl, Paula Hergert, and then Alan Hergert and Stephen Hergert. Alan was on the school board for 12 years. Mm-hmm. He graduated from Colorado A&M as well. Was probably CSU by then. Mm-hmm. They all graduated from college. I have 3 teachers, an architect, and a farmer.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I just remember what a good cook you were. I just always loved the food that you made for church socials or church funerals.
Well, that's kind of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how has kitchen life changed for a housewife?
You know what? It really didn't change much for me. I always had an electric mixer. I got one as a wedding gift. I changed it a few times. I still did all of my own cakes. I did my own pies. I don't know. It kind of stayed the same for me. I don't remember any big changes.
So you don't go buy everything frozen and ready-made?
I'm afraid not. I have done that. Marie Collender is our good pies. Mm-hmm. And I have done that in later years here, but not early on.
Yes, okay. So what were some of the most common sayings or proverbs of your parents? Things or stories and sayings that they would... I mean, my grandma used to say a stitch in time saves 9.
Yeah.
Or...
I'm trying to think. All I remember were the cuss words in German that really meant nothing. Uh-huh. They were good because they didn't take the Lord's name in vain, or it was Donnerwetter, which is thunder weather. Oh. You know, Heilige Fessenaugenmal, holy feathers, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know, they just taught us to work. I don't remember sayings that they had right offhand, but we had to work. Yeah. My mother took us out to the beet field because she wanted us to learn to work.
And it worked.
It did.
It did. It stuck with your family too. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, what were some of the favorite stories when you were out in the fields? Did you tell stories, sing songs, do anything?
Well, it was just my sister and me. Mom didn't go out with us much. When we traveled, we sang all the way, always. And I'm trying to think, You Are My Sunshine was one of the songs. I can't pull that one out right now.
But I know my dad sang us across the country because you didn't have the radio stations.
The Bear Barrel Polka, lots of things we sang. We did. And my mother taught us the songs she knew. And You Are My Sunshine was always one of them that I can remember.
You are my sunshine,
Yeah.
my only sunshine.
Yeah.
So any other German sayings? I loved those.
I can't think of any. My mother, when she became of age, she only had 5 grades of school, but she left home and she started working for doctors in Fort Collins. She worked for a doctor, not Farnsworth, I can't think of their name. Dr. Norton was one of them. But she had to become very, quote, Americanized. And so they did not pass on German sayings.
Okay.
They really didn't. They were really trying to be American. You know, in our age, you did not broadcast you were German because of World War I and because of World War II.
Yeah.
So you were quiet about your heritage, and they were.
And they were.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very noteworthy. So, what were some special places around your house that you liked to play?
Well, Severance was small. We went to the school. We played on the playground. There were 2 lakes, one south of town and one east of town, Franklin's Lake. We ice skated during the winter. We'd go way out to Angel's Lake, which is about 2 miles east, and swim during the summer. We rode our bikes. We did a lot of bike riding. We played softball almost year round at the various places that we could do that. We played with the boys.
Yeah.
There wasn't such a thing as girls softball then. It was all mixed.
Was there anything you hated to have to do as a child, or that was difficult?
Well, I didn't like working beats. I guess I did not have to do things that were really ugly for me because we lived in town, and my dad had the liquor store. We cleaned house. I don't feel bad about that, you know, and did yard work. I don't feel bad about doing any of that. I've had a yard all my life. So
Beautiful flowers.
Yes.
You've always been known for. Weren't you part of the flower club in Windsor?
yes, I'm a garden club member since '57.
All right. So Dolores, what kind of clothing styles were popular in high school when you went from Severance?
Well, it was above the knee, the skirt length. We had to wear dresses. We could not wear slacks to school. And even when my kids started, they couldn't wear pants. That changed along the way. As a child, we wore long stockings, and we had a harness that we put on to hold our stockings up. And, you know, my mother made most of our clothes until we were in high school. And my sister and I didn't get a lot of clothes. But what we had was nice. You know, it was what the fashion might be, but never any outlandish fashion. Couldn't afford it.
More practical things. So what kind of movies were popular? Did you go to the movie theater in downtown Windsor?
We did, because we had a cousin who was working at a theater in Fort Collins. So we got to see some of the old movies. But for me to tell you the names, I remember some of the actors' names. Both my sister and I loved Tom Drake, and June Allison was in some of those movies. The Egg and Eyes one I remember, but I think we were early marriage, we saw the Egg and I don't know. I can't tell you. We didn't get to go very often.
What was the ticket price?
Oh, very cheap. When Dawn was a student, it was 50 cents, 25 or 50 cents. Yeah.
Okay. So, in high school, what were some of the activities that you did at high school?
Well, we sang in choir. There were no athletics for girls when we went to school, and no PE. So during breaks, we just hung out with each other. We have pictures of us hanging around on a piece of farm equipment. We just hung around and talked.
Okay. What was the town of Windsor like back in 1950? How big was it?
Windsor was only like 1,500 when we started school there. So it was quite small. Severance was only 150 people.
Wow.
So very different than it is now. We knew everybody, you know. We had a great time at Severance, and we had a great time at high school. We just felt like we belonged, but really the only activity for girls was to sing in choir or be in band or orchestra. They actually had an orchestra for a while. But
was that in the old high school that's now connected to the middle school and closed?
Yes, yeah, it was the
What do you remember about that old building, the auditorium, or where the band room was? Or
well,
the basketball pit?
Yeah, I remember the pit. And we all had study hall in the auditorium. So all of the kids were in there, and there was a study hall teacher. And there were several grades in there at one time. So that's how study hall was handled. We had, seven periods a day. We had good teachers, kept us involved. As far as activities, we'd go to the games. We were part of the pep club, you know, that kind of thing. But really not much else. I think high school girls' athletics started when my daughter Paula was in high school.
And Paula was quite an athlete.
Yeah, she was.
So what advice would you give teenagers today? And we hope they listen.
Well, I loved school, and I wish more kids loved school and worked hard and tried to learn what they were supposed to learn. Be active, but use good sense. Stay away from alcohol and drugs. And, well, smoking. Yeah. Most of our class did none of that. We really didn't. If we did, we got into trouble.
Yeah.
So, I just say, work hard.
Yeah. Now, while your husband was he in the Air Force? You said? No.
Yeah, after we left.
After you left, so did you travel with him then?
I did.
And where was he stationed?
Well, our first station was California, and then we were moved all the way to Selma, Alabama. It was still segregated, and Dawn drove across the bridge every day. That's in the news a lot, that there was the march across the bridge at Selma, Alabama.
Wow.
Yeah. So, we lived in California and then Alabama. So we got a little taste of both coasts.
Okay.
And the beauty of each section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there fears that you've had to face in your lifetime, or situation events that were frightening to you?
All of them were. I was not a courageous girl. I struggled. But I always managed to overcome. Okay. And so speaking in public was really hard for me. I took speech to try to get over that. Yeah.
All right. Well, do you have any fears now?
No, I've gotten over a lot of that.
At what age? No.
Yeah, I'm 87, and so, yeah, I don't have a lot of fears anymore.
Okay. Is there anything that you've always wanted to do but never had been able to, or had the time to do, or the means to?
Probably not at this point in my life. We've traveled. We've been to Europe. We've just done a lot of things. I've had my garden club and gardening. I've had a fulfilled life. Being a mother is the biggest job in the world, and I concentrated on that, so, and my kids show it.
They do. I know even when I was a new mother, you gave me good advice, because you said with 5 kids, I probably haven't slept through the night, and I don't know, a large number of years, so I figured, well, don't worry about it. So, all right. Changes, predictions, and concerns. All right. What are some of the most amazing inventions and discoveries that you have seen in your lifetime?
Well, of course, space. That all happened, since I was a child. And my parents are the ones who faced the biggest changes. They went from horse and buggy to automobiles. I haven't gone through that. I think the thing that bothers me the most is that nobody eats around a table anymore. That they take their food and go to a TV set or eat by themselves and don't have the community that we always had around the table. Breakfast, whatever meal we had at home was around the table. And we visited a lot. We had a lot of fun. To this day, we have a lot of fun around the table. Tell stories and laugh. Mm-hmm. We really do. So.
Well, that's good.
I have vacuum cleaners. I have everything I need as far as appliances or what have you. We have electric stoves. We have electric refrigerators. Didn't have that as a kid, but we do now.
How did you get ice or keep your food cold for your fridge?
You had to buy big hunks of ice, and you had an ice box that you put it into.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in America, how is it different from when you were a child? And do any of these changes worry you?
Well, I don't know. I had a good childhood growing up in Severance. My kids had a good childhood growing up on the farm. For people now, I wish they had some of that. That the kids could feel free to go out and play, and then when it gets dark, come in. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing that we've lost. Now out here on the farm, we haven't lost that much. My great-grandkids play on the lawn until dark, mm-hmm. and Grandpa's out there playing with them. So I guess I have not lost a lot of what I had earlier. I've gained.
You've gained.
Yeah.
So how did your faith and religion play a role in your life?
Well, I grew up in the church. Our German heritage people believed in going to church. So I went to Sunday school, got confirmed, and I have stayed in church ever since. Brought the kids up there and had a good time being a parent of kids in Sunday school and Luther League, and So I'm still a member of the same church since 1945 at Bethel. And then a Bethel Lutheran. And before that, I was a member at St. John's Lutheran.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Which was the German-speaking?
Yes, our family, some of us wanted English all the time because we had to sit through German sermons. And my parents finally decided that wasn't helpful to us. So Bethel was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
And it was when you bought that building, it was the old, was it the library?
It was the old library, yeah.
On the corner of 4th and Walnut.
Uh-huh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
We'll have to show a picture of that to everybody too.
Yeah.
All right.
And then in 57 is when they built or I guess started in 56, the building that's there now. And our parents built it. I mean, they actually did physical labor to build that church. The stone layer taught them how to lay the stone, and yeah.
The flagstone church that's there.
Yeah.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
So what are you most thankful for, and what brought you the most comfort and joy in life?
Well, I've been thankful for family. I feel very fortunate. I had grandparents who had the courage to come to America. I'm grateful that I had parents who loved and cared for me through the Depression. And I have a lot of Depression characteristics. And I'm grateful for what I have now. I'm grateful that I have had a good husband, 5 children who have done well for themselves. I'm just grateful for all of that and for what I have to be able to live in a house and take care of it and all of that.
All right. So before we close, thank you for your time and your wisdom.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Is there anything you wish I'd asked you or that you want to have for closing remarks? Or
Not that I can think of.
well, we thank you for Dolores Hergert for sharing your time. Were you Dolores Felty before? Or?
No, I was Dolores Schneider.
Dolores Schneider.
My mother-in-law was Felty.
Okay.
My mother was a Martin, my dad a Schneider from Kansas.
Okay.
And they met on a blind date and were engaged that same weekend. Got married and moved to Kansas. So I was born in Kansas,
Okay.
but came here as a very young child.
All right.
I was probably 3 years old.
Well, you've been a great attribute for our community.
Oh, thank you.
And so have your family. So thank you.